crossing over to Kampala in Uganda. We are going to be talking with Musinguzi Goodluck. He is a Ugandan based journalist and editor with Kigezi News. And we're looking at another crisis situation, but this time around in Africa, in our very own continent, or rather on our very own continent. And we're going to be looking at what exactly is happening in the DRC. We understand that it is home to the second largest internal displacement crisis in Africa, but little information is shared with the outside world about what's happening in the country. There are a couple of things that we, as the outside world, ought to know about the situation in the DRC, and thus we have Musinguzi Goodluck, as I've indicated, a Ugandan based journalist and also editor with the Kigezi News. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Julie. Greetings from Kampala and Eastern DRC, which is like 400 kilometers away from where I am now.
Okay. Last week, just before you carry on, I covered a story regarding the displacement of people in Sudan. We do know that there is a huge political unrest in that part of Africa as well. At that point, we were told that that was the largest displacement area in Africa. And now we're hearing that DRC seems to have overtaken the situation in Sudan. Can you tell us why this is? And do you, as a journalist, believe that the situation is more dire in the DRC than it is in Sudan?
Thank you much, Julie. I want to say from the DRC, from the Eastern Congo, to go to Kinshasa, you have a distance of 3,600 kilometers from the capital. And therefore, Eastern DRC is a place that is so much far away from the capital city, Kinshasa. It is sort of a neglected place. It's a hilly place and covered with jungles. And therefore, there is nothing like you call government structures or state structures that can hold when issues go out of hand. Now, when I take back the listeners and those who are watching, in 1994, there was a big crisis in Rwanda when the RPF came to power. Over 1.5 million people crossed over to DRC. That is when the humanitarian crisis started. And along the way, the fighting has started with the M23 was there almost 11 years ago. They recently started fighting, and among the countries that are there to bring peace is South Africa. So the fighting goes on and rages on, because also remember there is the fight of minerals. Minerals are the biggest thing that attracts those fighting forces. And therefore people are being displaced. But apparently, and from the United Nations, we have almost 7 million people now displaced. Uganda takes another beating when the fighting goes on, people cross over. Meanwhile, as we are there, as people are running out from the fighting, from the displacement of fight because of fighting, then we have the viral disease of mpox. It is another crisis that has come in. And like I've already said before, this is a country in Goma where we had volcanicity take place in a place called on the mountain called Nyirangongo. One time I was interviewing somebody who said, we don't know what happens with our country. That while we suffer with disease, while we suffer with war, even now there is fire coming from underground. So Eastern DRC has faced a number of challenges that me as a human being, even you sometimes wonder. While in Sudan, we know there are two fighting forces, their fighting is a bit clear, but when you come to Eastern DRC, you look at it as a neglected place. United Nations came, with its forces. They have failed to restore things. And therefore, you find that the quickest, the nearest capital city, actually, they do their shopping or they can get medicine from is Kampala. Because compared to 3,000 kilometers miles away, and between 400, 500 kilometers to Kampala. And therefore, even when they are running away, the easiest, safest place can always be Kampala. But sometimes when the rebels break, when they cut off the passages of safety, then people have to go back inside DRC. And that's why we have a big camp of almost 7 million people. The United Nations is calling for help so that people can donate and they raise money. WHO apparently wants almost 30 million United States dollars to help with the mpox scourge. Uganda has had 2 cases of mpox, which we are meant to understand now have been discharged, but they all came from Congo. So it's really a difficult, and from the point of women and children, and a human being who is out there, when you see women and children suffering, they have to be on run. They can't settle. They can't settle. Then even when they are trying to be in camps, fighting is on. Then you have disease, and mpox mostly affects people because their nutrition is down. And therefore, that's what we are dealing with. And the world seems to be a little bit of focus too much on Sudan, not the Eastern DRC this time around.
Okay, so what you have highlighted there is mass displacement, which is a huge issue. You've also talked about extremely vulnerable populations, particularly women and children. And you also mentioned the rich mineral resources in the DRC, which obviously is creating all of the tensions there. Um, and it's a huge problem. And I think it's going to take a lot of intervention from Western governments to try and help resolve this. In the meantime, they probably would probably get their hands on mineral resources which could uplift the people in DRC, but they would probably then cut deals with the people there and take away your mineral resources. What is the mood like on the ground right now? If we're talking 7 million displaced people, how are they surviving?
The mood is very sad. It's when you talk to people from DRC, when you meet them, they sometimes say, they sometimes even question God. They sometimes say, is there a God? Are we like other, how can we be like other people? It is difficult because to leave your farmland, to come and be a refugee, or to go in a camp, you don't have the basic needs, water. Then you have now diseases, diarrheal diseases. And also Eastern DRC is one of the most cold places because of the amount of the Hile, being a Hile place. And therefore, it's when children can't have basic things like good clothing, good jackets, that then you have pneumonia. People don't have food. I mean, at the sound of a gun, can you stay near your garden? No, you can't. And therefore, it is one of the most painful things to watch when children are dying, pregnant mothers can't access health centers. Apparently, even those who are having non-communicable diseases have to look for money and maybe come to Uganda for better health care. And remember, on the other side, the Rwandan border is closed. Burundi, there's nothing much for them to go and get. And therefore, Uganda, and recently we have seen the World Bank try to support Uganda because of that element of refugees. And even when we talk about the Sudan war, apparently we can say also some of their leaders and people have come also to Uganda. And therefore, I can already say to those, if those people who decide, those people who have resources, please don't forget the Eastern DRC. Don't forget those mothers and women, the children who don't have a voice, who nobody is there to speak for them. And as we have talked about the cutting of the deals, they also think that the Western world is also part of those who are partaking the minerals. And so they don't know who will talk for them. And so for me, I think deep in my heart, when I've covered some of these stories, you break down, we are coming from COVID, which really messed us up. And now you have mpox. So you don't know what to do. And that's why sometimes people, when they say, where is God? Because it seems they have now said, let's focus to God. Let's call unto him. Because the Western world, while they rush to some of the countries and bring peace, the Eastern DRC, because of the mineral, the resources. And interestingly is that when you hear information from Goma, the planes that take off every day, you can't believe it, that it is a war zone, or it's a country under crises like mpox. So it's difficult.
Okay, can I? We need to wrap up now, and you keep making reference to mpox, but very quickly, a short answer. How serious is the situation of mpox in these camps? You've told us that you have 7 million people displaced. Is it spreading rapidly? And also, I guess the other question is access to education, exploitation, which we've covered already, and gender-based violence. If you can just give me a short, sharp answer to those issues, please.
Yes, it is true. There are cases in DRC, and for example, Uganda has made sure that they screen everybody. But of course, there are people who pass through the porous borders. If mpox spreads in a camp of 7 million people, I can tell you the world, we are just going to have a catastrophe. Their nutrition levels are down. They don't have enough food, and therefore they don't have medication. The United WHO has just only gotten 6 billion. I saw Nigeria getting vaccines. I don't know whether Uganda and the DRC are going to get vaccines, not tomorrow, but maybe yesterday. And that is an issue. And therefore, also when fighting starts, education is the first casualty. Children don't go to school. And that's why you find that Uganda has opened up. Uganda will never ask you for your identification to access their schools. So some of the children are able to cross and study from Uganda. And therefore, that's one issue. But generally, when you have to describe
Okay,
this,
very quickly, are the issues around gender-based violence very rife because that many people are displaced? Yes or no?
they are very ripe, and as I was telling you, one of the World Bank projects has been to handle that issue. Women suffer. Women are on the move, and you see, when women are moving, the men are not seen. So it is the women and the children. But in these communities where they pass, there are some people who want to take advantage of them, and therefore it's an issue also that should be looked at, that we shouldn't lose. While the mother has not been killed by a bullet, now they shouldn't now face this other problem of men maybe trying to take advantage on the communities where they come in.
Okay, I'm so sorry, but that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you indeed. We're so sorry to hear about what's happening in the DRC, and we do hope that the world wakes up to this horrible situation, and we do hope that it can be contained. Musinguzi, Goodluck, Ronald, based in Kampala. You are a journalist. Thank you indeed for being on the show this morning. Keep safe. It is exactly 8:56 News and Views, and we're now going to be talking with political analyst Levi Ndau. We're going to be looking at the right, I guess, right leanings or alt-right leanings of the DA party.